we've got big changes that are coming to ChatGPT. So, OpenAI just announced two big updates to ChatGPT. So, the first is going to be a soon to be released subscription tier they're calling ChatGPT Business. And this is designed for enterprises. The plan is going to follow OpenAI's API data usage policy. So, what that means is if you're on this tier, the user data that you give ChatGPT to produce prompts will by default not be used to train ChatGPT. So, for anyone who doesn't know today, unless you are specifically turning off certain settings through the API, anytime you share content with ChatGPT or ask it to produce outputs for you, you are also helping train the model. The second is a feature that now allows you to start preventing this as an individual user as well. So we are now going to start seeing individual users at any tier have the ability to turn off their chat history. When you do that, anything that you give ChatGPT in terms of data or conversation will not be explicitly used to train ChatGPT. So these kinds of privacy and security features are definitely more appealing to some of the concerns out there about how OpenAI trains the model, and as well as the concerns that enterprises have when trying to use these tools in a compliant way. So first up, Paul, I wanted to ask you, what do these changes mean for business leaders who are using ChatGPT or thinking about using it moving forward?
I just think it's interesting that OpenAI, is making the play. It seemed really obvious this was the direction they were going. They know that enterprises are not going to want their data in future training sets for the next foundational models. So it was sort of inevitable that they were going to do this. The conversations we've been having lately with enterprises and it is this exact concern. Like everybody's trying to figure out the play with large language models. Should they be customizing and training their own? And if so, which language model company or which AI application company should they be working with? And how does that work? And this is sort of like, again, almost every conversation I'm having at the C-suite level, it's coming back to this. How do we build a strategy around our use of large language models? And obviously inherent within that is we are not going to give our data to anybody. There was a crazy example. I think you and I traded this back and forth maybe, but that guy on Twitter, we'll find the link and
Mm,
put it in here, who like patched in GPT-4 to his bank accounts and credit card, like gave it all its personal information, investing detail, so that it could help him find savings, like find anomalies and expenses in his credit cards and all these recurring costs. It's like super utility, like great function, but in the process, giving all of his personal financial data to OpenAI, which is like crazy. And yet, I know that a lot of people don't realize that's what's happening when they're putting their data into there. I was actually, I've had just in the last week, I had conversations with some attorneys who weren't aware of that,
mm.
and some other industries where they may have people who are using these tools unbeknownst to the corporation and could easily be putting in meeting notes for summarization or things like that, where there's confidential information contained within them, asking it to summarize PDFs where you're cutting and pasting stuff into there. So there's all these uses. And I think the key takeaway for me is that, uh, again, if you're not aware, you have to be careful what information you put into these tools. You have to understand the usage of your data, how they're going to apply it, and to make sure it remains your confidential proprietary data. And I just think this is going to be something, a continuous theme we'll talk about on this show, because almost every enterprise I'm aware of is starting to realize they have to solve for this and trying to figure out what do they do? Who do they talk to? How do they move forward? Um, so yeah, and as someone who uses ChatGPT, um, the one thing I thought of is like, why do I have to turn off my like chat history? Like that's a really useful function for me is like see the things I've asked. Like actually what I want is a search function within my chat history. So I have like, dozens of these things I've done use GPT-4 to create. And like to find them is kind of hard right now. So I'm all constantly scrolling, but I like having that history there. I don't want to have to give that up just to like not have my data. But at the same time, that's probably the barrier they want. They want your
Mm.
data. So they don't want you to easily turn it off. So yeah, it just seems like the direction it's all going to go. And something for people to keep an eye on.
So, given that, do you see this as leading to more enterprise adoption or usage of ChatGPT? Is it too early to tell?
I would guess it at least puts them in the conversation. Again, if you're working in an industry like insurance or financial services or healthcare or, I mean, honestly, really any enterprise that protects its data and has a CIO and has security protocols and governance, and you're going to ask these questions regardless. Previously, OpenAI just may not have been a, a, a platform you would consider if they didn't have these protocols in place. So I think it's almost just like essential for them to be part of the conversation around corporate language AI strategies.
Gotcha. And also, I think it's important to layer in some context here. These moves, their changes, these aren't happening in a vacuum. OpenAI has faced some pretty serious legal and regulatory challenges, notably with Italy trying to ban ChatGPT and the EU looking more closely at how OpenAI trains models. How does this move or these developments relate to what they're dealing with on a legal and regulatory front?
I assume it's all connected. Just last week, didn't Italy reinstate ChatGPT? So I assume there was some sort of concessions made on OpenAI's part that would enable them to get back in and try and proactively prevent other countries in the EU from, you know, shutting it off. So yeah, it all seems to be connected. We know OpenAI from past episodes we've talked about. We know OpenAI is in conversations with the US government, on oversight and regulations and trying to be proactive there. And I'm sure doing some um, lobbying to kind of protect the innovation side of this. So yeah, I think it's all connected, which is why it's probably going to be an ongoing story on this podcast. At least it touches every aspect of society and business right now.